Breaking news.
This is a Fox News alert.
President Trump has tested positive for coronavirus.
He and the First Lady.
This afternoon, we learnt Trump advisor Hope Hicks had tested positive for the coronavirus. That's her yesterday without a mask and just inches away from the president.
She did test positive. I just heard about this. She tested positive. So I just went for a test.
Then 2 hours later, Trump dropped a bombshell on Twitter, revealing that both he and Melania had COVID-19, assuring the country that
we will get through this together.
Just this week, Donald Trump attended the first presidential debate, he and his staff without masks, where he mocked rival Joe Biden for his own mask use.
I don't wear masks like him. Every time you see him, he's got a mask. He could be speaking 200 feet away from it. He shows up with the biggest mask I've ever seen.
Then yesterday, Trump held a rally in Minnesota, days after the state's governor had pleaded with the campaigns to abide by the state's corona guidelines.
You know, someday we're not going to be doing this anymore. What are they going to do without Trump?
Right now, more than 7 million Americans have been infected with COVID-19. At least 207,000 have died. People aged between 65 and 74 are 90 times more likely to die than someone in their early 20s. Trump is 74.
Here we go.
So with just 31 days left until Americans go to the polls, what effect will this have on an election already in chaos?
The virus. It affects virtually nobody. It's an amazing thing.
And CBS correspondent Natalie Brand joins us now from Washington, D.C. Natalie, how will this affect the election campaign?
Well, the timing of this really could not be worse. We are about 32 days from Election Day. The president had a flurry of rallies scheduled, including one in a key battleground state today, Florida. He was headed to Wisconsin, another battleground state, over the weekend. There's the second presidential debate here in the U.S. In just 13 days from now scheduled. So this throws that entire schedule into question. And of course, again, as we've been talking about, this is a highly unpredictable virus. So it's unclear how long he'll have to remain in isolation and what the recovery looks like. But at this point, the schedule just very, very unclear, critical time in the campaign. And then the other question that will be asked later today, since it's still very early in the morning here on the East Coast, former Vice President Joe Biden, the Democratic nominee, he will presumably have to be tested because he was, of course, at the debate with the president earlier this week. They were far apart on stage and were tested that day, of course, but he will likely have to be tested, as well as contact tracing that will have to be done at the White House. We know that process has started. So this just has a whole host of ripple effects that are still developing at this hour.
Well, Natalie, we know it's a massive news day over there for you, so thanks very much for your time.
One of the major ironies about this is if you were to think of the three world leaders who were most sceptical and dismissive of coronavirus, at least in the early stages, it will be Bolsonaro in Brazil, Boris Johnson in the UK and Trump. Now, all three of them have tested positive. Bolsonaro just went into hospital yesterday. They're not saying whether it's related to his coronavirus diagnosis. Everyone around Boris Johnson, or at least the political journalists around Boris Johnson, are saying he's not quite the same person that he was. And now with Trump, it's too early to know. But in some ways, I mean, you do not wish anybody ill with this virus. But if he was to come out of this completely asymptomatic and come out, you know, all bolshy about, I'm fine, in many ways, that's another bad message to put out to the people.
Well, potentially the biggest risk factor for COVID right now is COVID scepticism, isn't it?
Guys, I think he might be one step ahead of you. I have a theory that potentially this is a president who is not known for telling the truth. I wouldn't be surprised if he's actually lying and wants to say that he's got it so he can say it had no effect on me and I'm fine and it's actually nothing to be afraid of.
Oh, so this is fake news, is it, Tommy?
This is the long game,
Stop lying to
Tommy.
the nation, guys.
Wow.